And welcome to Halacha on the Line, a weekly radio show dealing with practical halachas that affect you in daily life, with your host, educator and author, Rabbi Yair Hoffman. The show begins right after the following messages. How would you like to buy a new $1,200 or more top-quality shaitel for only $500? That's right, a name-brand top-quality shaitel for only $500. This is an amazing offer. Email shaitels613.com. There are hundreds of satisfied customers. Email shaitels, SHEITELS, 613 at gmail.com today.
It's a bright new future. Say goodbye to gas. Introducing the 2017 Kia Soul EV. $100 a month includes taxes and bank fees. Yes, you heard right. Pay one payment in DMV fees and you're good to go for 36 months. This offer is limited to one vehicle per household and you must take delivery by August 31st, 2017. Residency restrictions apply. Lease disposition fee at the end of the lease. Offer includes federal tax credits. Plaza Auto Leasing sells and leases all makes and models. Call your pals today at 718-975-9000 or visit them online at www.plazaautoleasing.com.
You ever get the feeling that people don't care anymore? Either you get thrown into voicemail, you can't escape, or dumped off onto a website. Whatever happened to good old-fashioned personal service? It still exists. Naftali Solomon and 718 Insurance is proud of giving their clients real personal service. 718 Insurance specializes in the real estate industry, from apartment buildings to commercial office buildings to developers and contractors, retail stores to professional offices. They take good care of their customers. If you're buying insurance from another broker, then 718 Insurance and your company are losing lots of money. Have you heard of No Fault Insurance? Check out 718 Insurance's newest product, Jewish Mothers Insurance, also known as My Fault Insurance. For more information, please call 718 Insurance at 718 Insurance. That's easy to remember, 718 Insurance.
Good evening and welcome to Halacha on the Line. This is your host, Rabbi Yair Hoffman, and I'm here with Eli Tendler, grandson of Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zatzal, and the president of the Rav Moshe Feinstein Foundation, which has been publishing an extraordinary amount of late. Rav Eli, what has the foundation been up to?
Thank you, Rabbi Yair. As many of your listeners probably know, the foundation has been spending a lot of time putting out the new format of Sfarim on my grandfather Zatzal's primary writings, which is focusing on what many people know as my grandfather's pride and joy, the Dibros, and taking
The Dibros Moshe.
Moshe.
Uh-huh.
And taking both the existing writings that have previously been published as well as new ksavim on the Masechtas, and rather than the format that you and I grew up with,
where it was super exhaustive,
where these tremendous anafim that were makif shas, from one side or the other, in order to bring my grandfather's understanding of a sugya down on writing in writing. There is a very talented group of kollel out in Eretz Yisrael that has been working on the ksavim and breaking them down. I don't want to use the word that there's some type of derogation of the writings, but bringing them into a more al hadaf type,
more bite-sized
and al hadaf format.
Now they're in the Mir Yeshiva, as I understand it. This group of.
Yes, that's my understanding as well. At least they're populated by some mere Yungalite.
And the guy heading it is a Talmud of Reb Beryl Soloveitchik.
Chaim Weinstein is the head of
right, but he learned by Reb Beryl Soloveitchik.
I believe so. And in addition, they paired with bringing down the Dibros to the Al-Adaf format a selection of primary igros that are associated with those sugyas, and they've put them in the back of each of these svarim. I think we've now come out with 5 different, maybe more. I believe it's 5 mesechtas in this new format. They've been widely successful as far as the SARM stores are concerned. And really exciting was that we have ready to go right now is the first volume of 2 volumes on Zerom. The first one is dedicated to brachos. And what's really exciting about this is that in addition to the Dibros and the Igros, it will also, the Dibros on Bavli and the Igros, it will also have my grandfather's Ksavim on Yerushalmi. Those of you who know, my grandfather had some serious, significant trial and tribulations with respect to his writings on Yerushalmi. There isn't a lot out there for my grandfather on Yerushalmi, and now the foundation will be putting out first on Brachos and then on a selection of other Masechtas in the second volume on Zerom that will be coming out later.
Okay, wow. I remember Reb Nissen Alpert wanted to kind of like many years ago, 30 years ago, so wanted to redo the Dibros Moshe to make it, smaller and more concise. So I guess this is now coming to fruition.
Once you put 30 years ago, you're already taking it out of my realm of cognizance over here. So I don't comment. I can't comment. But Baruch Hashem, I think the effort they've done to bring down the Dibros into this new format has been quite successful.
Okay. So maybe let's get to a discussion of this forthcoming 3rd volume of the Mesoras Moshe. I understand that it will be coming out about Hanukkah time. Is that the plan?
I believe so, and I guess we didn't mention what else the foundation is doing. It is working on the Mesoras Moshe, which is these decades of notations of Piskei Halacha and discussions regarding Halacha that my brother recorded in mountains of notebooks. That 2 volumes have already come out. They've been again widely successful from a combination of both the Teichen.
I remember, by the way, in 1982, I asked the question, and the question was having to do with neo-Nazis and whether they had a din of a rodef. I remember I had an argument with some JDL-niks, and the JDL-niks said, quite clearly that that they have a din of a rodef, and I thought this is ridiculous. They're just so I posed the question to Rav Moshe, to your grandfather, and he basically said that in fact they do have such a din, but that there were 3 other issues that pretty much prevented anyone from taking action along those lines, if you know what I mean. And he explained them, and that was in 82. So I'm just wondering when that Mesoras Moshe is going to come out.
I don't know, and I can't even comment on how the selection and the editing is going with each of the Svarim, but they are quite successful again from a combination of Teichen and the stylistics that have been captured in putting out these discussions.
I just wanted to mention, before we get into the other aspects of the Mesoras Moshe, something fascinating that I saw in the galleys of the new forthcoming Mesoras Moshe that the foundation forwarded to me. We know that there's a halacha that a posek may not paskin if he's had to drink. And it seems Rav Moshe equated this with other things that impair judgment. He writes, in the Mesoras Moshe, it says that having a fever of 103 or more, a Rav should not be paskening halachas.
Yes, he had a fever then, and then he limited himself to just giving Mara Makomos, reference places about the Indian he was discussing, but he felt that he was more impaired in his thinking with the fever than after drinking wine.
Oh, wow. So I was thinking it may be logical to extend the svara here, to extend the prohibition of paskening during any form of impairment, not just a fever, but lack of sleep, for example. If someone goes 3-4 days, or there are a lot of doctors that do that in hospitals. They're on, and I think there are studies that show that they're impaired medically. So lack of sleep. Another one would be a very, very high blood sugar. Maybe, I've seen, unfortunately, I'm a diabetic. So, and there are times when my blood sugar has been above 500. I hope no one will think that my articles and such are affected by that. But so a very high blood sugar or a very low blood sugar, lack of sleep, I was thinking also there are many other factors probably that, with blood testing and such, that could impair judgment. What Rav Moshe Paskin here could be, and we don't even know what level of glucose, of blood sugar would be impairment. Maybe we should, check this out with poskim and doctors together.
Interesting thought, both medically and halakhically way above my pay grade. But I'll share with you a story, and please, no one should rely on this from any halachic basic or any type of, even if I get the facts exactly right. It's just, you brought it up. It's a story I grew up with in my family about my grandfather Zatzal. Is that he was once at some type of mesiba, party, kiddush, I'm not sure, where he was seen imbibing some alcoholic beverage, and then got into a conversation legabe halacha.
I wonder if anyone got that on video.
Maybe it was on Shabbos, I don't know. Okay. And then somebody approached him and said, Lilmud ani reitza, meaning we saw that the Rosh Hashiva was drinking, and then he apparently got into a conversation where he gave some aspect of psak. And to which my grandfather answered, and maybe sort of consistent with what you were saying, Rabbi Yara, before about the subjective or just understanding what these impacts are. He said, yes, true, but I'm Russian and it has little impact on me. And therefore, again, people should not be taking this in any type of, and nobody should judge themselves because how well they do in a Kiddush club. But again, it's sort of consistent with this conversation that we were just having.
See, it could be though that this was a sense of humor on his part. In other words, it's quite feasible. I'm just thinking, just in case, people come with a kol koira that what are we saying about Rav Moshe here, and this show, gets a chayrim put on it even while it first begins. Right. I'm thinking of another way of understanding it, possibly.
I hope not. And my grandfather did have a fantastic sense of humor.
Okay, so it could be.
It could very well be.
It could be that he was just joking, and that really it wasn't a psak. It was like some other matter.
Again, I disclaim to every level the halachic and even the factual. Giving over the exact factual occurrence that took place, but it is a story that is consistent with the topic that we had.
So, are there other examples of his humor that you could mention?
Right. So keep in mind that my grandfather Zatzal was nifter when I was just 18. My Yiddish wasn't the strongest in those days, and my grandfather's primary language was Yiddish. But I can recount for you a quick incident just showing his humor rather than maybe repeating the specifics of his humor. Was my grandfather, we were zeicher that my grandfather would spend Sukkos at my parents' house up in Monsey, and for many years. And one of the highlights of my grandfather's stay was that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky Zatzal would come visit him when he was in our house. And people would think when two Gedolei Hadar come and sit down and talk together, that you would expect there to be some intense Klal Yisrael related discussions about the future nitzias of Torah and Klal Yisrael. And indeed, maybe there were, but the only thing I can remember about these two people doing while they were sitting is sitting and talking and laughing the whole time. So I think it was clearly a humorous aspect to his just general demeanor, especially on the friendship levels, that shone through for those who were close to him.
Okay. All right, so let's get to the area of kashrus. What are some of the interesting rulings that we find in the new Mesoras Moshe regarding kashrus?
Interesting topic. There's a general concept that my grandfather discussed, and that he equated the idea of timtum halev to midos tovos. Murder and violent crimes were rare to non-existent in Europe, where everyone were far more makbid on kashrus maybe than we are in the general public today. Theft was also at a minimum.
So in other words, you're saying that he equated the low crime rate to the consumption of strictly kosher food. That's an interesting understanding of timtum halev. And we generally associate timtum halev with the ability to understand and comprehend Torah in depth. But yeah, of course, it seems it would be a davar pashut that it has to do with midos as well. I mean, we find it, of course, by a dough race. You're not supposed to eat a dough race bird. There's that new tumult now with the brackle chicken that's going on in Eretz Yisrael. I wonder what Rav Moshe would have. We need a Rav Moshe now because
now, always, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Going on.
There's also an interesting incident regarding the halachas of milchik bread. We know, of course, the Chazal forbade baking dairy bread. Because bread was such a staple that it was used at every meal and people might eat it with meat. This is obviously Yerodea Simon Tzadi Zayin. The yeshiva boys used to attend a summer camp where the cook always made a parva cake. But this time he made a dairy one. And my grandfather Zatzal paskin that the prohibition of dairy bread would also apply here too.
Wow!
By this staple of a cake that the boys were used to, and now was coming out in milchik format. And he said they should abstain.
Wow, that's a big chiddush. Interesting. I remember once a tshuva from your grandfather about the election about the clocks, the time clocks, the Shabbos timers. So he said that had Chazal been around now, they would have definitely answered it. So you see that your grandfather had this meta view of some halachic aspects that the prohibition would also include cake, where where there was no milchik cake around it. Well, that's fascinating extension.
Yeah, indeed. You should also know that he ruled that even if there is a label on the packaging of the bread that indicates that it's dairy, a label alone doesn't help. It still would fall under the Isser as intended by Chazal.
Yeah. In Shulchan Aruch, there are two exceptions brought down about milchik bread. The Gemara says that if you make it ke'ein tura, so what does ke'ein tura mean? Like the eye of an ox, or ke'ein tura is like the eye of an ox. So there's two pshatim in that, the Rambam and Rashi. I forgot which one is which, but the two pshatim are, if you make it small, like the eye of an ox, in other words, a small amount, a one biteful of bread, so then you can have milchik bread. And the other exception is if you make a special shape out of it. In other words, like you form an ox out of the bread. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins, he rules like both Rashi and Rambam's exceptions to the rule. But, with milchik bread, at the time it was made, neither of those things were made. It wasn't made small, and there's no special shape. So later on, if you put a package after the production, prohibition is still there. I once made a tumult about something. I don't know what Rav Moshe would have said. I'd like to ask some poskim now. The OU does not allow milchik bread as a general rule. I saw one or two hechsherim, that they do, but the general consensus of poskim is not to allow it. It's interesting though. Thomas's English muffins are OUD. Now I imagine that their rationale is the special shape, whatever, and that they say no one has meat with Thomas's English muffins. Anyway, I googled once that there are tons of hamburger recipes and other such recipes using Thomas's English muffins. So if you Google it and you find that there's an answer, it may be a problem. I never got a response about that, but it is an interesting question. Anyway, I wonder what your grandfather would have paskined on that. Moving right along.
Some other, you said you once were on the topic of kashrus and the new volume. You should also know that he permitted non-dairy creamer only when it was in the container. But he himself never consumed non-dairy creamer, even though the fact was indicated on the container.
Interesting. Maybe he just didn't. Well, no. There was a discussion of it. So yeah. Wow.
Another fascinating halacha. This one was posed by Shmuel First from Chicago.
By the way, he's one of the biggest poskim in the country.
And he's also the primary editor of the Mesoras Moshe. if a nursing mother really needs milchiks, my grandfather Zatzal ruled that she can wait 3 hours, even if her minig normally is 6 hours, since this is also a minig b'Yisrael. And so this is an important halacha, and one that nursing mothers, may very well welcome.
I thought that there might be a caveat there, that it's only if she really needs it. But yeah, okay. Okay, let's get to some other areas of halacha. We know that one of the current controversies in the halachas of bris milah is whether to perform a bris milah in 1 step or 2 steps. Basically, what's going on here is we know that there's the milah and the priya. Up till now, pretty much, throughout Europe, we would always do the milah and then the priya. Then in the 70s, Rav Peretinsky, Zatzal, he was an alter mirror, a brilliant posek. So he came up with a system where one can grab the underskin and the top skin at the same time and cut them simultaneously. And this makes for a cleaner cut. And this is, I guess we can call it the 1-step method, rather than, doing the cutting of the upper foreskin and then afterwards peeling down the priya of the lower foreskin. So in Eretz Yisrael, pretty much everyone does the 2-step method, following what they did in Europe. In America, the Hasidim, still do the 2-step. In the Litvish, in America, a lot of them have changed to Rabbi Peretinsky's 1-step method. The healing, they say, is quicker, and it's just a smoother thing. In Lakewood of late, there's a tumult about 1-step versus 2-step. I think the trend is going to, back to do the 2-step method. So up until now, Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal's position was quoted that the 2-step method is preferable because there's a medrash that says Moshe Rabbeinu did the milah and Aaron did the priya. So, but now, according to the new Mesoras Moshe, volume 3, it seems to be that Rav Moshe actually prefers the 1-step.
Yes, again, Rabbi Hoffman, this conversation is a bit above my halachic pay grade, but the new sefer does bring down my grandfather as being quoted as saying that the language of the Yerushalmi indicates that this 1-step method is the preferable method.
Wow, that's a bombshell of halacha. I also saw an interesting tshuva there in the galleys. By the way, this galleys thing is like worth its weight in gold. Anyway, but I saw a tshuva about a potential gioris who absolutely dreaded, she had a phobia of being underwater completely. And all her life, she never had her head fully immersed underwater. So it seems that the only way that she could halachically perform the tevilah, the immersion, was if she would previously go to a hypnotist to get over the phobia. And your grandfather, Zatzal, ruled that yes, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing this, with going to a hypnotist to avoid this problem.
Yes, and he also added that for her monthly immersions, she would have to do the same thing, and she would have to be informed of this in advance during her gear process.
Interesting. So that she would know, that would be like part of the halachas for her, of what she would have to do. Fascinating. I also saw a ruling about mezuzahs on laundry rooms. In previous times, before the advent of plastic and diapers, laundry rooms were filled with, children's diapers and such, and was pater. And now, however, that most people use plastic diapers, so you don't find those in the laundry rooms, many people paskin that a laundry room needs a mezuzah. I wrote a sefer actually on mezuzah. It's available on Amazon.com. Mezuzah, a comprehensive guide. There's an advertisement there. I concluded against some other svarim, and I said that it does require a mezuzah. So I saw in the sefer that your grandfather Zatzal also seems to indicate that.
Yes, my grandfather ruled that a laundry room today requires a mezuzah. He had a proof from a Birchei Yosef about a barn where it requires a mezuzah when it's clean and without the refuse that would otherwise be of issue, and that the issue is only that only what it contains, but that there is no concept of a room in a house that is not a diras kavod by definition.
Interesting. I saw you said a room in a house that's not a diras kavod. I think, in a jail cell, they say is not a diras kavod, and that's part of it. That's not in a house, like what you said. Or maybe it could be that jail cells back then, they didn't take you out to go to the bathroom, so it could be that was the reason. That's fascinating, very interesting. I saw that your grandfather discusses the tzava of Rav Yehuda Chassid. There's about 75 different things that he recommends to his family members or whatever. There's machlokas about a girl dating someone with the same name as her father.
Yes. He said that it's clear that it is completely permitted when they only have one name that is in common if they have two names. In other words, if there's only an overlap of one name, there's no concern whatsoever.
Interesting. Now also, there's a whole section in the Sefer where he gives dating advice, which is interesting. I don't know if this would make the Mesoras Moshe coming out Hanukkah time more popular to the single guys and single girls out there that are dating. But I understand that he also gives guidelines as to how many dates one should actually date.
Yes, the Sefer brings down that he said it should be around 5 or 6 dates.
Wow. How many times did you date your wife?
I think we should go to the next question.
Okay.
Let's just say I was a machmer.
You were a machmer. Okay, just as an interesting story, when one of my kids were dating, it was I don't know whether I should mention the story, but my wife wanted. She said, "You know what? It's crazy that you only meet them later. Let's nowadays you could meet them before. It doesn't mean anything." So I said, "I don't know. I think it'll precipitate things." So she says, "No, let's do it." Anyway, so we went and we met with them. Then afterwards, the other side said, "So what's the minhag in Far Rockaway 5 towns?" So I said, "What do you mean?" So he said, "Well," and I responded with, "Well, what's the minhag in Lakewood?" So he said, 4. So I said, "Oh, yeah, Far Rockaway 5 towns, 10, possibly even more." But okay, single teachers. The Shulchan Aruch indicates that it's forbidden for single men to be rebbeim of young children because of a concern that an untoward relationship may develop between the mothers of the young children, bringing their kids to the Rebbe's house, and the single Rebbe.
So, yes, my grandfather ruled that nowadays, where this does not happen in our yeshivas, where the mothers bring the children, and it's not to the Rebbe's house anymore, these concerns are no longer relevant, and it's perfectly permitted for a single man to be a Rebbe.
Interesting. What tutoring though may be a problem if it's in the house? Maybe. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for this interview. Is there anything else that you wish to tell our listening audience?
I can see from the success that the Svarim have when they come out, that the tzibur in general is pleased with these Svarim, both the Dibros Igros, the Mesoras Moshe. The foundation is there putting out these ksavim from my grandfather Zatzal, and anybody who would like to assist in that endeavor, I have every confidence in saying that it will be a schus for them and a schus for their families. The foundation could use the assistance in funding these projects, and if anybody is interested, please reach out to the foundation, and they will be received warmly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You don't happen to know the email offhand, or they could reach out to halachaontheline@gmail.com, and we'll certainly forward the information. halachaontheline@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and to advertise or to contact the show for any reason, please email halachaontheline@gmail.com. halachaontheline@gmail.com. This is your host, Rabbi Yair Hoffman, and this has been Halacha on the Line. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a bright new future. Say goodbye to gas. Introducing the 2017 Kia Soul EV. $100 a month includes taxes and bank fees. Yes, you heard right. Pay one payment in DMV fees and you're good to go for 36 months. This offer is limited to one vehicle per household and you must take delivery by August 31st, 2017. Residency restrictions apply. Lease disposition fee at the end of the lease. Offer includes federal tax credits. Plaza Auto Leasing sells and leases all makes and models. Call your pals today at 718-975-9000 or visit them online at www.plazaautoleasing.com.
TCN, Talkline Communications Network Radio, America's #1 Jewish program.